Is Nick Sirianni on the hot seat? Should he be on the hot seat with what we're watching? I'm going to look at both sides of the argument. If you followed me on this channel long enough, or if you followed me on other social media platforms, you probably know how I feel about Nick Sirianni. But let's play devil's advocate on both sides of this, because what's going on right now is simply unacceptable. So the Philadelphia Eagles, on the good, are 8-4. Okay, they're still in first place in the division. They still, at least record-wise, are one of the better teams in football. They still have a loaded roster. They bought at the deadline. They traded for Jalen Phillips. They traded for Michael Carter. They are just coming off of a Super Bowl win less than a year ago. Less than a year ago, they dummied the Chiefs in epic fashion, 40-6. Everybody remembers the score, and then obviously you pull your starters. Like, that's how dominant the win was. Those are everything going for the Birds. Going for Nick Sirianni is the fact that he's been to 2 Super Bowls in a short time span. One he lost, one he won. Okay, that's the good. That is what's going for Nick Sirianni. And if you want to include, I guess, the players play for him, okay, fine. That's what's going for Nick Sirianni. Let's look at what's going against Nick Sirianni. And this is my bugaboo with Nick Sirianni. He's an offensive-minded head coach who allegedly doesn't call the plays. Now, I say allegedly because we've seen this before. His first year in Philadelphia, for like the first 6 or 7 weeks, he called the plays. And the offense was a shit show. Like, it was lost. He was in danger of losing the locker room. This is well reported. After the Las Vegas Raiders game, he ended up giving up play calling Shane Steichen. They went on a run. They miraculously made the playoffs. They got beat badly by Tampa Bay in the playoffs, but it was like, hey, who cares? Because we didn't expect to be here anyway. We're playing with house money. The next year, Shane Steichen is once again the OC. They go to the Super Bowl. Now, Shane Steichen gets poached by the Colts. The Eagles promote Brian Johnson from within. Brian Johnson, who you'd think, because he was in the building, would have the playbook, would have the recipe for success. Having worked with Jalen Hurts, you would think he'd have the recipe for success. Apparently, he did not, because the offense sputtered. It stagnated. It looked a lot like what we're watching now. And then after the season, the report comes out from Tim McManus on what exactly went wrong, because you got to remember that team was 10-1 at one point, but much like this team, 10-1, but didn't look right. And that's the thing. Like, Jalen Hurts loves to say, winning is the main thing. Like, when did the main thing not become the main thing? Style points matter. I hate to break it to you. Style points matter. And style points to me are like cracks in the foundation. You know, the style points are there are no cracks. You can have a mansion and it looks great. But when you see termite damage, it's like eventually that's going to fall apart. I feel like that's what we're seeing here. And that's exactly what happened in 2023 with Brian Johnson. But the report comes out from Tim McManus via ESPN.com that while Brian Johnson was calling the plays, Nick Sirianni was meddling a ton. He was overruling Brian Johnson on some key play calls. It was essentially Nick Sirianni's offense, but they collapsed. So then Nick Sirianni has to go hat in hand back to the owner and basically beg for his job and say, oh, okay, I'm never going to do it again. We'll hire an established OC, and you know what? I want to keep my job so badly, I won't even call plays. No, I'm giving up everything. Which then begs the question, like, what do you do here? But either way, 2023 was a disaster because you had Brian Johnson, you had Sean Desai, you had Matt Patricia, and none of it worked out fine. 2024 happens. They hired Vic Fangio. They hire Kellen Moore, and everybody remembers how that ends. Now, luckily, Vic Fangio has no aspirations of being a head coach, but Kellen Moore gets poached by the Saints, and you're right back where you were. Kevin Patullo. Now, before the season started, I did a whole video on the one thing that worried me with this Eagles team heading into this year was the elevation of Kevin Patullo, knowing nothing about Kevin Patullo. But my worry was Nick Sirianni meddled with Brian Johnson, the hire from within. This is before winning a Super Bowl. The idea that he wouldn't meddle again after winning a Super Bowl, I just found hard to believe. And yet here we are, heading into Week 14 at this point, and I'm looking at an offense that I feel like I've seen not just once, but twice before. It is Nick Sirianni's offense. That, to me, is what's going against him. The other thing is the fact that, look, when things are going great, Nick Sirianni's the man, right? He's on the sidelines, he's yelling, he's hooting, he's hollering, he's yelling at fans, he's yelling at refs, he's, motherfucking the other team and all that. But when things aren't going well, he doesn't have a lot of answers. I will remind you that 2 weeks ago, horrible game. At the half, Nick Sirianni's asked, what do you want to change? They had 6 penalties going into the half. He said, penalties too much. We got to clean it up. They had 8 in the second half. So they're an undisciplined football team. 24 hours ago, I watched them have a false start on a punt. So that's a problem. The game plan, the offensive game plan is a problem. Because it was like 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and against the Bears, they had 7 first downs. 7. They had no answers. Now, to defend, again, because we're going to play devil's advocate here, to defend Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni, a lot of that had to do with just Jalen Hurts having one of the worst games I've ever seen. He just wasn't accurate. And he usually is really accurate. So, I'll give him a little bit of a pass, but he wasn't accurate. He had 2 costly turnovers, and he just didn't look good. So, okay, the 7 first downs, was that play calling or was that play execution? Let you be the judge. Even if this particular game was simply play execution, there have been too many games where it has been play calling. I mean, you look at, and you can easily find this on Twitter, you look at the route tree that A.J. Brown runs now as compared to last year, and it is elementary. It's as if Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni got together and said, you know what was awesome back in my day? Do you remember NFL Blitz? Fuck yeah, I remember NFL Blitz. Bro, pull it up. What if we just had A.J. Brown just do da bomb the entire time? And that's what it really feels like. Now, once again, we're going to play devil's advocate here. Has the offense struggling because of play calling, or are they struggling in large part because the offensive line has been banged up for the majority of the season? And the GM, who I love, don't get me wrong, but he's not averse to making mistakes, made a massive mistake when he let Mekhi Becton walk to Los Angeles, ironically the Eagles' next opponent, replacing him with Tyler Steen, who clearly isn't good. And then they got hit with the injury bug, and they've had kind of this makeshift offensive line, where the offensive line that you would have on paper hasn't been able to gel all season long. Combine that with a lack of offensive line depth, and it's not creating the holes that Saquon Barkley had last year. Not even close. Now, he's had some really good runs. He's had some of the best 3-yard runs I've ever seen, but he's got to feel at times like he's playing behind the New York Giants offensive line that he played behind with years. So, to me, that's going against Nick Sirianni. The accountability thing is also going against Nick Sirianni. Once again, and why wouldn't he be? He's asked about play calling after the loss against the Bears. He says, we're not changing up play calling. Why aren't you changing up play calling? Let me think. Why wouldn't you do it? Maybe it's because you're calling the plays. Yeah. Maybe you don't want to change up play calling because, well, if you change it up, then you might have to admit that you were meddling. But also then if you change it up, you yourself have to take all of it on. And then it's like, what does Kevin Patullo do? Now, I did a TikTok live. I do TikTok lives and I go live on YouTube for every game. And a lot of people were questioning, why won't you make a change? Because you got to remember, in 2023, they had no problem demoting Sean Desai. It's the NFL. You can't fire a guy mid-season. No. I can't do that. No, not a young coach at least, because you don't want to make him look bad. So they said, go fill up the water bottles, and we're going to let Matt Patricia, a seasoned DC, we're going to let him handle the defense. Why was that okay to change the defensive coordinator, but you won't change the OC? And to me, it's really simple. It's because Nick Sirianni is an offensive-minded head coach. He has no problem changing the defense because he doesn't know jack shit about the defense. So yeah, okay, change it up. That's not going to be an indictment on me, Nick Sirianni, if we change the defense coordinator. But if once again I have a elevated OC fail on my watch and I have to admit defeat on that, boy, that's going to look bad. And it does look bad. But you know what looks worse? The offense I'm watching. So yeah, I think you have a situation where Nick Sirianni is once again meddling. And whether it's not Nick Sirianni or it is Nick Sirianni, and I said this in the postgame, he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't with me, because I look at it like you're either meddling and that's a problem, or you're not getting involved enough and that is a problem. You have to remember, and I think this is the most damning thing, at least for me, when I think about Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni was asked point blank going into the 2024 season, what is it you do here? Because he's not calling the offensive plays, and he's certainly not calling the defensive plays. And he didn't really have an answer. I kind of go into some meetings every once in a while. Okay, so you're a puppet. So you're a puppet for Jeffrey Lurie, who doesn't want to look at, like his organization is in a dysfunction like the Jets. So he'd rather keep a head coach. Obviously, you'd keep a head coach, because why wouldn't you keep a head coach? You want to keep a head coach and not have to pay 2 coaches, because when you fire one coach, you got to pay 2. So he'd rather keep a head coach as long as you yourself just are the rah-rah guy. and just stay out of the lane. Like not even stay in your lane. Stay out of all lanes because you don't have a lane. And that's what he did, and they won a Super Bowl. I can't stress this enough, and I'm blue in the face. And finally, people are starting to come around to this reality that I've been spouting for well over a year. Nick Sirianni rode coordinators to a Super Bowl win. Nick Sirianni did not win a Super Bowl. Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio and talent won a Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni just had a great seat in the house, and he was drenched in Gatorade at the end. But he didn't win a Super Bowl. Because when you don't call plays, defense, offense, and you can't explain what exactly you do on a day-in, day-out basis, I'm sorry. Like, what? Big Dom could have coached that team. And anybody who argues it is like, LOL, he won a Super Bowl. As if I didn't watch Brian Billick win a Super Bowl. As if I didn't watch John Gruden win a Super Bowl. Fucking Jeff Fisher got to a Super Bowl. And by the way, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. So we're thinking that like that is the litmus test of like winning a Super Bowl, and you can't just luck into one at times. Sorry, you can. You can luck into one when you have Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore calling everything, and you're just sitting there mean mugging the camera. And that's what Nick Sirianni does. But when you take away Kellen Moore and you still have a stacked offense with a lot of talent, and this is what we see every week, and you, as the head coach, don't know what to do, don't know how to stop it, don't know how to get out of a tailspin, again, for the second time in your tenure, there are issues there that need to be addressed. So yeah, again, is he on the hot seat? Should he be on the hot seat? Look, I'd have no problem if they moved on from him. I understand the view of it is going to be crazy. Like, oh my God, you moved on from Nick Sirianni a year after winning the Super Bowl. But again, I don't view it as he won the Super Bowl. I view it as coordinators won the Super Bowl because he hasn't done anything to stop it. I view Nick Sirianni, and I say this with a lot of experience with this because I was this guy. Believe it or not, I wasn't a good student, okay? I view Nick Sirianni as the guy in the group project who thinks his only duty is to bring vibes. You know this guy in the group project. He's the guy that doesn't really contribute anything except memes and jokes in the group chat. And you know what? That's fine if you've got 2 A students also in that group, because they're going to carry you. And they're going to carry you to a good grade, and they don't really care that you don't give a fuck. They don't really care that you're a dipshit. So they're just going to carry your dead body and deal with the memes and the jokes and the gifs and like the one PowerPoint page that you put together. And they probably recognize the fact that you have nothing to add, so they give you the bare minimum. That's fine being the vibes guy then. But when you only have like one A student, and that one A student doesn't even need the A, he's kind of checked out. It's like he's the guy, he's the Harry Hardo A student where he doesn't need the A, he's going to go get the A, but he's also you got to do your own work. And then you've got a bunch of dipshits around you and a bunch of guys who think their only role is a vibes guy. This is what you get. I say this as the guy that thought he was the vibes guy in every group project. Nick Sirianni thinks he's the vibes guy in the group project. But he has no idea how to actually get a good grade when he's put into the spotlight. And the fact that you have 0 answers for how to get out of this for the second time in your career, you absolutely should be on the hot seat. I've been banging this drum for over a year. Finally, people are taking notice. Winning a Super Bowl does not equate to being a good coach. It just does not. John Gruden won with Tony Dungy's team. And because, was it Bill Callahan? Yeah, Bill Callahan literally used the exact same playbook from the previous year, and Barrett Robbins went on a bender in Tijuana. And you look at the rest of his career, and it's been, ugh. Once again, Jeff Fisher is 1 yard away from winning the Super Bowl. I think we all know it. He was Mr. like 7-9 every year. Like Brian Billick. Like the list goes on. But we are fooled to think that Nick Sirianni is a good head coach. I'm here to tell you, not only should they move on from Kevin Petullo at this point, Nick Sirianni hasn't done anything to keep his job for me. Not one thing. And I'm biased, but I do want to hear your opinion on it in the comment section. Let me know. Because if this continues, and what gives you an idea it won't, by the way? What gives you a thought that what we saw yesterday, and by the way, what we saw the week before and the week before that, because this dates back to the Green Bay game, which was post-bye. So what gives you the idea that it is magically going to turn around? Probably nothing. So if this continues and they get waxed in the first round, would you move on? Let me know. Please subscribe. Subscribing is cool. Hit thumbs up. Smash that thumbs down button if you think I suck for whatever reason and you're LOL, this guy's a clown. He's just trying to do. No, I believe wholeheartedly that he fucking sucks. I would drive his hairy hardo ass to the airport because I'm Big Dom could do what he's doing. If his only job is to create PowerPoints with quotes from the movie Miracle, I think Big Dom can do that. Oh, and I'll remind you in that report that I referenced earlier from Tim McManus. The year that like this happened before 2023, and it kind of like really was jumped out in neon, the 49ers game, if you remember, and Big Dom got kicked out of that, and then he got suspended from the sidelines. Tim reported that Big Dom was kind of in charge of keeping Nick Sirianni in check on the sidelines, and once Big Dom wasn't there, Nick Sirianni was running around like a frat boy yelling at everybody, having no idea what was going on. So that's our leader of men. Yeah, we're fucked. We're absolutely fucked.